Why is my tax refund so small this year? Have you asked yourself this question before? Well, let me tell you, many taxpayers ask themselves this question every single year. Some of them every single tax season. But the question is, should you be getting a refund in the first place? Well, let me ask you this. Well, let me answer and get straight to the point first and foremost. Number one is if you want to find out why your refund is smaller this year, there's two ways you can do it. Number one is you can have a conversation with your tax preparer if you use the tax preparer to file your taxes and just ask them the question, hey, what changed between last year and this year that made my refund that much smaller? If you don't have a tax preparer or you don't want to reach out to them and maybe you did it yourself, the second option is I would personally do a side-by-side comparison. I would take my last year's tax return, this year's tax return, put them side by side. All right, now that might seem overwhelming, right? But your tax return really is 2 pages. Although you may get a stack this big from your tax preparer, a lot of it are going to be supporting documents that are used for calculations and worksheets and schedules, but everything flows to the IRS Form 1040, which is just 2 pages. So if you do a side-by-side comparison, I would take the 2 pages from last year, the 2 pages from this year, and only focus on the lines that actually have dollar amounts on them. That's the only lines that I would focus on, because if it doesn't have a dollar amount on it, then it had nothing to do with you that year or this year. So just focus on those lines. And then to take it a step further, the IRS Form 1040 is broken down into sections. It's very simple and easy to follow. So the first part is the taxpayer info. Then you have income and adjustments and credits and all the things. So all the way down to your refund, your balance due. So when you look at the lines, you should be able to see what increased, what decreased, and what led to the final result, right? So that would be my suggestion. And if you have questions, put them in the comments. As you review and maybe you have questions and you don't have a tax preparer, you're DIY and you don't want to Google, just put it in the comments. I'd love to do like a short, video on it for you and answer some of your questions. Now, the question I'd like to ask is, do you really want a larger refund? Should you get a larger refund? And before I get into that, I want to kind of break down like the way I look at refunds, right? I think they fit into 3 categories personally. The first category is we call it a refund, but it's free money from the IRS. These are people who the IRS says your income is way too low, and we're going to help you and we're going to supplement it, and we're going to give you some free money. So it's not money that you paid in that you're getting back. It's just free money from the IRS. And usually that's based on your income, dependents, and a few other factors, right? Second is people that get a little bit of that free money, but they also get some of their money back as well. Well, that tells me one or two things. Number one is your income is low, right? Maybe that's something we should try to work on and strategize. And maybe you are to try to see if you can get your income up. But also, because you're getting some of your money back, maybe your IRS Form W-4 that you filled out when you started your job, maybe that needs to be adjusted so that you can have some of that money throughout the year. Because if your income is so low that you're getting those credits, it tells me that chances are you can probably use some of that money throughout the year. So why send it to the IRS only to get it back at the end of the year when you can use it to do things, buy groceries, pay off debt, pay some bills, whatever it may be. And the third group are people that are just really, they don't qualify for the free money. They just get their money back, right? And the thing I would caution there is I see a lot of folks who, they don't want to pay, and I understand it. Most people don't want to pay, don't like to pay taxes in the first place, and they don't want to pay too much tax. So they'll go to their tax preparers at the end of the year and they'll say, hey, work your magic. Try to get as much of my money back for me as possible. But the one thing I'd like to share is that the strategy shouldn't be done at tax time because the year is over. Strategy should be done throughout the year because that's when you can kind of make changes and do things that can have a bigger impact. Because when you file your taxes, really it's just report card time. That it is what it is. And when you file your taxes, you have to be careful because, be careful what you ask for. Because if you ask your tax preparer to work their magic, and if you don't understand taxes and you can't validate the data and all the information, then you might find yourself in a situation where, well, let me give you a story, just like a friend of mine. So a friend of mine referred a buddy of his so I can do their taxes for him. So I was excited. I always love referrals, and I said, hey, let me help you out. I was able to get some information from him, file his tax return, or get it ready. And when I met with him to kind of work through it and talk through it, I told him what his refund amount was going to be, because in this case he was getting a refund, and I said it's going to be X, and he says, "Ooh, okay." I said, "What's up?" He goes, "It's a little light." And I said, "Okay, well, how much do you normally get?" He says, "I get several $1,000s more than this every single year." And I said, "Well, I mean, I put all the information that you gave me, so I asked him a few questions, and then ultimately I said, hey, do you mind sending me your tax return from last year so I can do a side-by-side comparison so I can find the culprit?" He said, "Okay, no problem." So I looked at it and had a conversation with him, and I said, "I figured it out. You did not tell me you had a business." And he goes, I don't have a business." I said, "What do you mean? It shows here that you have a significant loss from your business that ultimately what it did was it lowered your income, which lowered your tax liability, which increased your refund." And he goes, "Nah, Gene, I had no business." And I said, "Well, you may want to talk to your tax preparer from last year to see what you can do about correcting this, because it sounds like, the business was strategically placed so that you can get a bigger refund, maybe so you can come back to that person if you had no knowledge of it, maybe so you can come back and be happy with the refund. But it looks like the loss also lowered your income enough that you qualified for some credits that normally you wouldn't qualify for. And that's why you saw several $1,000s more than I'm showing you now in your current year tax return." He said, "Okay." So I said, "Do you want me to file your tax return?" He says, "Gene, let me think about it." Cool. I didn't see him. Crickets. So I reached out to my friend and I said, "Hey, whatever happened to so-and-so?" He's like, "Oh, he filed his taxes already. He went to the old tax preparer." And I was blown away. I said, I showed you this, but you still want it because you were chasing the money. So all that to say, be careful when you ask people to work their magic to try to get you a bigger refund. Let them do their thing. There are some really good tax professionals out there, and they're very skilled, and they have ways of getting you bigger money by asking you better questions. But it's always up to you to validate and review your tax return just to make sure everything is on the up and up before you sign and you send it away. All right, so if you want to get a larger refund, logically, you can just send more money to the IRS. But who wants to do that, right? So let's use an example. If you wanted your income to go up, your refund to go up by $3,000, then you would just, let's say you got paid every 2 weeks, you would take that $3,000, divided by 26 pay cycles. It'd be somewhere around $115 per paycheck that you would have to send to the IRS just to get a bigger refund. Now, is that a cool strategy? No, probably not. So instead of asking, how do I get a bigger refund? Maybe we should be asking ourselves, how can I build a smart tax strategy throughout the year so that I don't give too much to the IRS and I don't owe too much as well? Because let's say that you got a refund of your own money. Let's take free money aside. Let's say that you got $10,000 back of your own money with zero interest from the IRS at the end of the year. So you file your taxes and they say $10,000 of your money is coming back to you. Would you be happy? Probably not. You'd be glad that you got the $10,000, but you'd probably be asking yourself, like, I wonder what I could have done with that money throughout the year. Maybe I could have paid off some debt. I could have built an emergency fund. I could have started investing. That money could have probably made some money, so that 10,000 could have been 10,000 plus throughout the year. And there are people out there who intentionally try to be at a break even at the end of the year. They don't want to get too much back, and they don't want to owe the IRS any money. If that's you, let us know in the comments, right? And they do that because they rather leverage that money throughout the year to build wealth, because that's kind of the name of the game. So, what would you rather do with your money? I'm not here to judge. I'm just curious to know what your strategy is and what your strategy has been. Now, I believe that if you are able to understand the fundamentals of taxation, then you're able to, take control of your life, take control of your future, and be able to have a big impact when it comes to your money. So I hope that you found this video helpful. I'm pretty sure there are some questions. Put them in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Again, my name is Gene Bordas, and may tax time never catch you at a bad time. Thanks for watching.